The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition of Crossed Flags. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson right here alongside me, producer John in the background, and Molly's going to be taking care of us as well. So appreciate all of them as we get ready to get into the actual NASCAR season. You can tell once again we're doing this from our homes as we still are working through processes from our usual podcast studio, but that's okay. We're getting it covered, and we appreciate all the help and support of everybody. Like we said, the people in the background as well, plus a whole lot of other people who we haven't mentioned. But as far as the NASCAR season getting underway, if you haven't watched it yet, and I'm in the process of watching it, we took a break right here in watching the Madhouse, the story about Bowman Gray, which you can find on Fox Sports 1. Do a search on YouTube if you can't download or don't have Fox Sports 1. Fascinating, really is a very, very fascinating documentary about it. And Tom Rinaldi and everybody at Fox Sports NASCAR Media did a great job on doing that. And that's where they're going to be on Sunday night. This is the season opener cash grab exhibition race here, which has been held the past 3 years out at the LA Coliseum out in California, which meant really it was only for the guys who were invited. You had a specific set of rules about who all could go to this particular race. You weren't going to get a whole lot of other people that were going to trek all the way from the Charlotte, North Carolina area to the LA area just on the hope that they might be able to get in. So you didn't have as many cars. Matt, 23 starting positions for Sunday evening, 39 hopefuls. 39.
Which is ultimately going to equal there's going to be a really good car or two or five go home.
Yeah, I would imagine several probably are going to end up going home. So they've got an interesting split. Everything's going to kind of start off on Saturday with groups of 3 of 13 cars each getting out there, getting some practice sessions in. Not very long practice sessions each, but they're going to get what, three or four practice sessions in a piece, I think.
I'm not mistaken. I think it's 3 rounds. There will be 13 cars in each group.
Yep. And they've already set up that list, which we'll show you on Saturday during the big show on the big 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time show. We'll show you that. But yeah, 3 groups, 13 cars each. They'll do practices. Then they'll start to get into heat races, and that's where everything's going to kind of get settled in. And they do have a last chance qualifier as well.
Yes, they do. That LCQ race will be what I would call the handful. And that's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. Typical short track racing. I mean, let's kind of run this down about what you think to expect here. Typical short track racing, some beating and banging. And you and I have talked about the durability of these Cup cars here. These guys are going to lean on each other now that they've got the opportunity, because this is not the widest of tracks. I mean, yeah, you can go 2 wide, but you're not going to be able to really do 3 wide all that comfortably.
There's going to be an awful lot of pushing and shoving here. And with the infield being that grass area, it being the field grass area and not being asphalt, it's going to make it more interesting as well.
Yes, it will.
Because you don't know if anybody may tear the front end off of a car or what if they get shoved off in the grass. Because with that football field, there's going to be that crown in the middle, so the ground's going to raise up. It's just a matter of matter of how they go about it. But there's going to be some awfully good cars that end up getting knocked out of this race.
As you've kind of looked at it, who are the guys who you're kind of looking at as maybe finding themselves out instead of in? And I'll be honest with you, as much as I'm intrigued by the likes of an SVG, a Shane Van Gisbergen, his relative lack of experience on ovals has kind of got me kind of looking at him.
I think he may possibly be one of the surprises.
Okay.
But when you look at how they got the groups broke down, in 3 groups of 13, group one, it consists of Byron, Larson, Bowman, Suarez, Gibbs, Wallace, Hocevar, Herbst, Gregson, both Dillon brothers, Ryan Priest, and Tim Brown, modified driver, making the start for Rick Ware.
Modified driver who knows a heck of a lot about this track.
Yeah, Group 2, you got Blaney, Bell, Hamlin, Cindric, Gisbergen, Busher, Bush, Gilliland, Custer, Jones, Haley, Nemechek, and Burt Myers.
Again, Burt Myers is one of those drivers who we were just talking about as far as being a modified driver who's got a lot of experience at Bowman Gray.
But he is by far not in the car to get it done, if you ask me.
Which car is he in again?
He's in the Maravet car.
Car number 50, yeah.
50.
Okay.
Group 3, you've got Logano, Reddick, Elliott, Briscoe, Keselowski, Berry, Chastain, Zane Smith, Stenhouse, Allmendinger, McDowell, Ware, and Garrett Smithley driving the 66 car.
No disrespect to Ware or Smithley, but otherwise that is a very loaded group right there. All those drivers are going to bring good cars, and those drivers are good at short tracks.
If I had to pick on a loaded group, I'm going to say Group 1 is a loaded group.
Okay. Yep.
I'm going to say 1.
All right. It'll be very interesting to see how this all turns out. Again, things will start up on Saturday. We'll give you the full rundown of the schedule and everything like that. So be prepared for that during the big show Saturday morning. Again, CRN Live on YouTube. Check it out, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. The other big news that happened this week is something that even kind of took 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson a bit by surprise. So let's take you back a few years. And remember when there was a group called Richard Petty Motorsports, and they fielded the number 43 car, and that was really all they fielded. And then suddenly Maury Gallagher and GMS Racing decided we kind of want to go cup racing. So they bought in, and suddenly it became Petty GMS Racing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned around and really kind of surprised all of us when they decided that they were going to bring in Jimmy Johnson as well as a shareholder in that team. And Jimmy Johnson comes in, and they change the name and becomes Legacy Motor Club, or Legacy MC, if you want to take it by a little shorter. And I have to admit, I didn't realize this was the plan, but apparently it was the plan all along, at least according to what Jimmy Johnson says, that eventually over the course of time, Jimmy Johnson would take more and more controlling interest in the team and eventually take over the day-to-day operations of the team from Maury Gallagher. Right. And Richard Petty all but out, and has been really now for since the beginning of the 2023 season, I think.
He's been in a more an ambassador role.
Yeah, I mean, he still goes to the tracks. He still is very much involved in NASCAR. He still sports the Legacy MC logo, but he's really not involved in the operations of that team at all. This is Maury Gallagher's thing. Well, not anymore. How did this all change? Well, part of that is because a group called Nighthead Capital has come in, and they've bought a stake in it. And that apparently made Maury Gallagher feel comfortable enough to go ahead and say, Jimmy, go ahead and take controlling interest in the team now. You're the man taking over day-to-day operations effective right now. Apparently this was going to be something that was going to take another year, maybe 2.
From what I understand, yeah. But with this new investment group coming in with the capital, that group is coming in to invest with them, that just basically sped the process up. So yeah. I guess it just made sense, even though Maury Gallagher's got plenty of funds to do so.
That's true.
Considering he's the CEO of Allegiant Airlines and the founder of Allegiant Airlines. So
and Allegiant's doing pretty well, as you noted, even despite the fact that some airlines are having problems. Allegiant's not really.
I guess he had to do something to help pay Pete Carroll's salary now that he's going to the Raiders.
That's true. Yeah.
But anyway,
which will bring up another connection. We'll get there here in just a minute. There's another inside joke onto that one.
I'll be interested to see how it goes.
And my other question is this: because Jimmy Johnson had, and I'm using that word very carefully, had such a good relationship for so long with Chevrolet, it surprised us when they flipped to Toyota. You think that's going to continue, or is Jimmy going to think maybe there might be an avenue to get back to putting a bow tie on the front of those cars?
Time will tell. I guess it just depends on what Chevrolet and General Motors mainly, decides what they're going to do with the Chevrolet nameplate within NASCAR, because now that the Camaro is obsolete, even though they're still running the Camaro body this year for Xfinity and Cup.
True.
It's still a question mark. Are they going to spin the Corvette and make it a Cup car, or are they going to completely change the nameplate to, I don't know, about the only other car maker that General Motors has that is becoming prevalent in motorsports? Cadillac.
Thinking maybe the CTS of the V series, CT5, CT4, one of those two. Could be CT4 and Xfinity, CT5 and Cup.
I don't know. It's just I'll be interested to see what General Motors does. Preferably, I would like to see them stay with Chevrolet and brand the Corvette into it, but
that might be a little bit on the difficult side.
A rear engine car. Why would you promote a rear engine car in a front engine racing series?
Exactly. So I'm not really certain that that's going to happen. And it's something that you and I noted when I think it was when they announced SVG was going to be going Cup racing full time last year, and they did it on Talladega weekend. And you happened to go down there and you got some pictures. And one of the things that we noted about those cars was the fact that instead of saying Camaro on the bumpers, it just said Chevrolet.
Yep.
So that was the first hint that they were going to start moving away from the Camaro nameplate, at least for now. But again, this is something I think Toyota would love to keep Legacy MC. Don't get me wrong, because they don't have a whole lot of cars. They got the 4 cars from Joe Gibbs Racing, and they got the 3 cars from 2311. Now they've got Legacy MC, and their 2 cars. That's not a whole lot when you look at the sheer number of the teams, especially in the Cup Series, that are running Chevrolets and Fords. Not so much in the Xfinity Series on the Ford side.
Right.
But certainly on the Cup side, Ford has a very big presence. So Toyota's running that uphill battle the entire time. They wouldn't want to really lose Legacy MC if they can keep them. But I am kind of curious as to what might happen as we roll on into the future here. And is Legacy MC at some point in time thinking, hey, we've only got 2 cars. Are we going to start looking around? And they certainly won't be the only team that'll be doing this. But are they going to look to try and grab a third charter from somewhere? And if they want to do that, who are they going to get it from? I think RFK Racing's pretty much in the same situation. They're leasing a charter this year from Rick Ware Racing, which means that at the end of this year, they either have to buy it or Rick Ware Racing has to take it back. And I get the funny feeling you're probably right. I think Rick Ware goes down to 1. I think Rick Ware does go down to 1. Who else might be willing to give up a charter? Because now we're starting to really consolidate that whole area of those 1 and 2 car teams that are out there. And I don't know who's interested in selling at this point in time.
Unless Ware sells the one for the 51 outright. I don't see the Wood brothers selling theirs.
No, I don't see that either.
I don't see
Gene Haas selling his.
Haas is not going to sell his.
And understand why we say this, because of what he said when Tony Stewart made the announcement that, hey, Stewart Haas Racing is going to be no more at the end of the 2024 season. And then a few weeks later, I can't remember exactly how many, Gene Haas said, hey, I'm going to keep one of those charters because it's a great advertisement for my company, Haas CNC Machining Company.
Sure.
And he's making money hand over fist on that particular company. But for him to say, hey, it's great advertisement, okay, knock yourself out if that's the way you want to do it. You don't need the money, but you feel like you need to do the advertising, okay. So that's why he's going to keep it. He's not afraid to put his money where his mouth is. Witness the fact of what he's been doing since 2016 in Formula One. I mean, we did the story just last weekend where Haas F1 basically said, hey, for the first time since we've been on the grid, Gene Haas won't have to put his money into this. They've got enough sponsorship to be able to handle it without having Gene Haas pull money out of his wallet.
Right.
Now he can turn around and put that money into the NASCAR team if he so chooses.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's not going to happen.
Trackhouse is not. No. RCR won't.
No. If anything, RCR probably might be looking for a third charter too. At some point.
The question mark is, where do you get it from?
Yeah. Again, we start to consolidate this down. If Legacy MC wants to get a third charter out there, RFK is going to go ahead and do that third charter. You know, again, where are you going to get them from? You're really
there would have to be a 4-car team downsize, and I honestly don't see that happening.
I don't see Gibbs or Hendrick doing that, and those are the only two that are left.
Hendrick,
those are the only two that are left, and I don't see Gibbs doing it either. And because of everything that I've heard about this, yeah, I mean, I get it. Over the last few years, they've lost M&M's, they've lost FedEx. I hear M&M's is ready to come back into NASCAR in some way, shape, or form. FedEx has got problems of their own that they're going to have to deal with and get that all fixed. They didn't quit NASCAR because they're not satisfied with NASCAR. They quit NASCAR because they got financial problems on the other side of things that they've got to get fixed and taken care of.
Yeah, they're sending cargo planes out to the Victorville and Mojave boneyards.
Exactly. So you're dealing with all the other companies. Interstate Batteries has been with them since the beginning, and they're still with them. Bass Pro Shops is thrilled being with Joe Gibbs Racing, especially now that they got Chase Briscoe. They were very happy with Martin Truex Jr., and being able to go grab Chase Briscoe it kept them very, very happy. The sponsors they've got all report being very, very happy with what they've got going in their relationship with Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't see them having a funding problem, so I don't see them getting rid of a charter or needing to get rid of a charter.
No, they don't. I mean, the other day I seen that Bass Pro Shops is going to be on the 19 car every race this year.
So think about that, because that's such a rarity nowadays.
Yeah, it really is. I mean,
even FedEx was turning over some of the hood time to like Mavis Tire and Auto on the 11 car. And they were the only lone thing on the 11 car for how many years?
Since 2006.
Exactly.
2005, 2006.
You know, a lot of things do change over the course of time, and to put that kind of an investment into it, and they still have the deals that they've got with Austin Dillon, and I think they're still doing some stuff in the Xfinity series, unless I miss my guess.
They're still doing stuff with Gregson too. They're going to be on the 4
and Gregson, that's true. Yeah, so I mean they're technically sponsoring 3 cars in the Cup Series. So to do one of them full time and the other 2, certainly the 3 car is going to be a majority of the season. And I would think that probably on the 4 car for Gregson, they're going to be on a pretty good number of races as well.
I think they're supposed to be on like 3 or 4 for Gregson.
That's a pretty big chunk for Johnny Morris and the guys over at Bass Pro Shops to pull. So that means that they like what they've got and they like where they're going with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't see Joe Gibbs going anywhere. Like you said, Hendrick's the big fish in the Chevrolet pond. If you want to go back to Chevrolet, Jimmy Johnson, that's the one that you're going to have to deal with. And I'm not saying they suck all the oxygen out of the room, but they certainly suck a healthy portion of the oxygen out of the room if you're trying to become a Chevrolet team. It's why Stewart-Haas Racing flipped over to Ford when they did, and flipped us all out on this show when that happened.
Mm-hmm. And
so, yeah. So the future of Legacy MC, personally, I think it's in good hands. I think Jimmy Johnson learned under Rick Hendrick. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you go under well, we'll go back to the Stewart-Haas Racing side of things. Tony Stewart said that he learned how to set up an organization because he spent 10 years in the Cup Series level watching Joe Gibbs and how he did things. And he tried to model how he managed and how he owned by the example that Joe Gibbs gave him. Mm-hmm. I'd be thoroughly shocked if Jimmy Johnson wasn't doing the exact same thing in his years driving that 48 car for Rick Hendrick, paying attention to how Rick Hendrick did the day-to-day things that he was doing to work on that team and make it a success, and he will do his level best to take as much as he possibly can and transfer that over to this team.
Right. He will. I mean, when Jeff Gordon basically running the day-to-day Hendrick Motorsports like he is, I think he'll be okay.
And I'm pretty certain, even though now that they're really rivals, I get the funny feeling that there's still a friendship there, even though it might be, I don't know, a little bit more distant. I know that Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon have been sounding boards for each other for a long time.
Right.
If Jimmy had a question, he probably could still pick up the phone and call Jeff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's no way that Jeff wouldn't answer.
So let's go back to that inside joke that we were talking about. So you're talking about Allegiant Airlines. Allegiant Airlines is headquartered, correct me if I'm wrong, in Las Vegas.
Correct.
One of the other investors in Knighthead Capital is a guy who, if you follow other professional sports other than motorsports, which obviously you follow it if you're checking out this podcast or the big show that we do on Saturdays, and we appreciate your support, and we ask that you subscribe right down below right there. But if you follow the other sports, you've probably heard the name Tom Brady. Tom Brady, for those of you that don't know, why do I have to explain this, is a 7-time, there's that number again, Super Bowl winning quarterback who now is a partial owner of the Las Vegas Raiders and also happens to have an interest in Knighthead Capital. I found it interesting in reading this story earlier this week in that they said that Tom Brady's partnership in Knighthead, for lack of a better term, didn't have any effect on Legacy Motor Club at this time. Remember when we heard Kelly Earnhardt Miller and Dale Earnhardt Jr. sitting there saying, we're not going cup racing at this time, which means there's a door open somewhere in there for them to maybe move into the Cup Series. There's an opening there for Tom Brady to be more involved in just Knighthead Capital and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, he will. He will.
This is going to be an interesting thing to watch. There's no doubt about it. So Legacy MC officially changing hands. Yes, it has been done. The majority owner is now Jimmy Johnson. Knighthead Capital, from the way that I'm kind of reading it, is probably the second largest shareholder within that team. And Maury Gallagher has now dropped to third. And there may be others. I mean, those are the main three that I would certainly call. And again, Richard Petty remains an ambassador. And Richard Petty, here's the thing. And I hate to put it this way, okay? But if you look at where we are in history, it wasn't that long ago that we look back and realize that it was the anniversary of the death of an Alabama State legend, regardless of what you might think, where you land on the Alabama-Auburn side, Paul Bear Bryant dying. And I remember this very well. It was about 1980, and my dad looked at me, and I don't know what prompted this statement by my father, but it was about 1980, 1981. My dad said if Paul Bear Bryant ever stopped coaching, he'd be dead in 6 weeks. Turns out he was dead in 4. Almost exactly from when he announced he was going to be retiring as the head football coach of the University of Alabama. He coached in the Liberty Bowl against Illinois. They won that final game. And then mid-January, he was unfortunately gone.
Yep.
Richard Petty catches me as that kind of person. If he ever stepped away from being involved in any way, shape, or form with NASCAR and racing as a whole, I think he'd be gone shortly. I do. I hate to say that, but I think it would happen.
Well, I've had an actual NASCAR Hall of Famer tell me directly, face to face, that I'm afraid if I ever stop being involved in motorsports of any kind, I'll die.
Mm-hmm.
And that gentleman's name is Red Farmer.
There you go. And that's why Red Farmer is in his 90s. Even he kind of debates how old he is, but he still goes out to Talladega short track. And even if he doesn't get in the car, he's actively got his hands busy working on the car with whoever happens to be in it that weekend.
He has a wrench in his hands if he don't have a wheel in his hands.
That he does. And Richard Petty, to me, catches me as that kind of person. If he's not going to the track on a regular daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis, I don't think he'd be around that much longer. And I hate to say that because I don't wish that on anybody, but I think it's true. I do. So it'll be interesting to watch this Sunday evening. The weather's going to be interesting because what we've got coming in is actually kind of decent temperatures. I heard some of the guys from the Motor Racing Network, specifically the Godfather Dave Moody, say he was basically prepared to get dressed up like Nanook of the North in case he needed to be. He may not need to be. It may not be that cold, but there's the possibility of rain.
Yeah. Now, I've seen images of how they've painted the football field up, and they have absolutely went into straight overkill mode, painting the field up with logos.
Are you really shocked by that?
No, they have overkill.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised by that at all. Are they going to bring the rain tires? I haven't heard.
I think so.
All right. So maybe we do get racing either way. All right. Let's hope so. That's the way it's supposed to start, though. We're supposed to start with the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray. All right. That's Sunday. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the Jimmy Johnson Legacy MC situation a little bit more this weekend as well, and a whole lot more. So join us, won't you, for the Championship Racing Network Big Show. Again, CRN Live, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time this Saturday morning right here on CRN Live on YouTube. If you happen to be in Alabama, in the East Central Alabama area, you can catch it on the radio as well at 95.1 The Mountain. We appreciate you checking us out here on Cross Flags. Again, don't forget, subscribe down here below. On behalf of producer John and Molly, who are taking care of making sure that everything gets posted properly wherever it needs to get posted. And on behalf of Matt Nicholson, I'm Steve West. Thank you very much. We wrap up this edition of Crossed Flags.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.